Hey everybody! I want to close the loop on this Radio City Products multimeter. Let's just see where I am with it, and I'll talk a little bit about my next project. So you'll see that I've got everything shined up, real nice. Everything cleaned up good, no problems. Again, I think I showed you this in the last video, but inside I did replace this this capacitor. I checked all the resistors; they're all fine. I cleaned all of these jacks. And I also made sure that this battery connection here was good. So I have the battery in there. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to zero it out. Okay. On the leads, I actually did replace the wire on the leads. Here's the ends on one side, and here's the ends on the other side. I used 16 gauge wire, and it's called Superworm. Now, this is 18 gauge variety. It's called Superworm gauge, and it's actually auto wire, super efficient race wire, and it's extremely flexible, just like a regular voltmeter. So it works really well. So in order to fix the zero adjust on this thing, you have to take your common lead right here and put it into common, and you take your positive lead and you put it right here into the hole that says R. And you put your selector on RX1, and when I touch these two leads together, just like that, let me make sure I get a good connection here. Hold on, that's all over the place. There we go. Alright, I don't know if you could see this. You'll see that the meter, the needle is definitely not on zero. So we're going to take this and adjust it. Like so. There we go, we got a nice connection now. There's zero. Then we're going to take the selector and move it to RX10. And we're going to adjust that to zero. And then we're going to go to the mega ohms, RX100, and that's already on zero. Then you go back to RX1, just make sure it's right there. And essentially your meter is calibrated at this point. So I should be able to measure a resistor and get a reading. So let's get a resistor and do that. I will be right back. Okay. Here's a 2K resistor. So we're going to put this on the times 10 mode. Let's see what we're getting. Let's go up to the times 100 mode. And I'm getting, looks like it's about a little bit less than 2,000. It's a 2K resistor. So I'm getting a little bit less than 2,000. Looks like I'm getting about 19 and change. Really hard to tell with this. Let's go to the 10 selector again and see what the scale's telling me here. Not very helpful. So, yeah. So 100 scale it is. And you could see it's probably not exactly accurate. But that's fine. That's okay. So the meter itself works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the screws back in, but first I'm going to take the batteries out, because I don't want to store this thing with the battery in it, because honestly I'm not going to use this thing every day. And if I leave the battery in there, I'm going to forget about it, and I'm going to have a problem again with it leaking. So in order to keep this thing restored, what I'm going to do is, take the battery out, put the cover back on, put it back in the wooden box that it came in. And this will be a nice little analog meter that I can use when I need it, but not going to keep the battery in there. So that's that. Let me put this away and I'll show you what I'm working on next. Be right back. Alright, here's our next project. I'm sure you're familiar with this. You've seen this before. So this is the AM transmitter that I told you I was going to build another one. But I'm going to do something a little bit different with this one. I'm going to use a solid state rectifier, and I'm basically going to remove the 5Y3 tube that's there. I'm going to put in a pair of 1N4007s here and a pair here, and that should bring me right out to here to my filter caps, and that should allow me to do this with a little less heat and a little less tube dependency. So I've already built this out on a breadboard just to test it. Okay, so here's my diodes, and I've got the two 1N4007s here and here, and I've tested it with a transformer, and I'm getting a clean DC signal coming out of there, so that's going to be good. But let me show you what I'm going to put this in. That's the thing I want to show you about. So there was some debate about me using that Philco 89 during the last video in the series, and I decided and agreed that that radio isn't too good of a shape to use. So did a little digging and found a suitable radio that I can use, and it's a, let me see, it's an RCA Model 50 made in Canada. And when I got it, it had no transformer, it had no coils, it was pretty much just a chassis and a wooden case. Did have the tuning cap, and that's a perfect donor for me here. So let me show you what this thing looks like. Here's the chassis. So I did strip out the tube sockets, obviously. Took those out. There were some 9-pin minis in here. Filter cap. Here's where the transformer goes. And you can see that the dial and the tuning cap is still there. So I'll be able to actually use that as part of the AM transmitter for tuning this thing, which is great. So I'm going to leave that intact because I am able to use this tuning cap as well. So that's that. Underneath, you'll see that I've picked her clean. There wasn't a lot in there to begin with. With the coils not there and with the transformer not there, there really wasn't a lot of stuff, just a couple of terminal blocks and you know, a couple of things like that. And as far as the case goes, here's the case, and you'll see it's in pretty good shape for, you know, for something that age. Dial glass is in great shape. Speaker cloth probably needs to be replaced. I'll worry about that later. The finish itself is pretty good. Let me see if I can raise this up a little bit. The finish itself is pretty good as well. So so that's the case that we're going to use. And the beauty about this thing, and I'm going to have to probably take the camera off. So let me do that. Okay, so there's the chassis inside the radio, and the thing I was going to say is the beauty of that is that I could fit this coil inside like this. Fits right in there perfectly. So this is going to be the choke, and this is the one that's 155 turns. I'll be able to put that inside there nicely. This is going to be my transformer. I'm going to have my 6L6 and my 6SK7 right here. No rectifier tube. I may move these tubes over here. I have to think about that. They're a little bit close to the power section. I may move them. I'll have a place for a filter cap. I'm going to use a filter cap that actually comes up instead of mounting it on terminal boards. So underneath there's going to be very minimal wiring. And this is going to be a really nice AM transmitter. As far as the antenna goes, I do have a loop antenna that came with this thing. I really don't know if it's strong enough or if it'll be good enough for what I need, so I may have to, you know, mount something on top of it here, which should be an antenna, and that's easy. I mean, I've got plenty of room in here. So that's the plan, and we're going to use this. I'm not going to make a series out of it because you've seen me build one of these already, but I am going to have a much smaller chassis to work with. So this works out perfectly, and having a radio that was ready for the trash that I got really cheap was really a helpful thing as well. So so that's going to be one of the things I work in the background. And let me show you one more thing I'm going to be working on, and that'll be it for this odds and sods. Be right back. And then lastly, what we have here is a Bell & Howell Filmosound 16mm sound on film speaker. And you'll see it's a model 179. It's got a speaker port here. And some of you that watch Terry at D-Lab may have noticed that he did one of these recently. I'm doing the same thing. Let's flip it around. It's got a nice little leather handle. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this thing. So we flip it around. It's got heavy-duty latches here. I'm going to open her up. And you'll see inside it's got almost like a velvet. Got the wires. This wire goes to the speaker. And you'll see it's got one of those old connections on it. Speaker connection like that. And it has some power cord. I guess that went for the projector, but I don't have that. This is a 16 ohm speaker. It says Bell & Howell on it, but I believe it's made by Jensen. And it's a 12-inch speaker. So that's really cool. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a guitar amp out of this. Let me show you this. Hold on. So what Terry did on his is he removed this top plate. And he slid in a 7-inch chassis like so. Same thing I'm going to do. So I've got the chassis there. We're going to take this top off. And we're going to build a Fender Deluxe out of this. And I've got someone in mind that I'm going to give it to. So this will be a cool little project. And this is going to be the one that I create the series on, so I can show you step by step how I'm doing it. So that's going to be the next video series. And of course, we've got to test the speaker out and see if it works. That's a nice heavy-duty speaker. I'm sure this is going to sound awesome. So so that's the plan, and we'll see where it goes next. Anyway, that's it for today. Just wanted to show you a few things, and we'll see this in our next video series. Okay, everybody? Have a great night.